Hi, everyone. Welcome to PeopleMetrics Live. Now, today is a special PeopleMetrics Live as it is CX Day today. So happy CX Day to everyone on the call. And CX Day is dedicated to celebrating that work that folks do every day to deliver a great customer experience. And today, we're going to join in that celebration and share 3 ways to celebrate your CX stories. So before we dive in, let's do some quick introductions. My name is Kirk Lobauer. I've been a project manager here at PeopleMetrics, running a number of our customer feedback programs. I'm here to share my expertise. And I'm joined by our 2 panelists, Sean and Audrey. So Sean, I'll turn it over to you to say hello.
Hey everybody, Sean McDade, founder and CEO of PeopleMetrics. Happy CX Day to all. I'm thrilled to be here all the time, but especially on such a momentous day as CX Day.
And I'm Audrey Squaresky. I'm the Director of Customer Experience here at PeopleMetrics. Happy CX Day, everybody, and I'm excited to be here.
And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this week's PeopleMetrics Live on 3 ways to celebrate your CX customer success stories. So Sean, I guess to kick it off, a lot of effort goes into customer feedback and customer experience programs internally. And how well do you think companies do at sharing the work that they do and sharing that information?
Yeah, I mean, not great. I mean, it's definitely an opportunity. There, like you said, there's tremendous effort to put together a professional customer experience management program or voice of customer program. From choosing who you're going to partner with to figuring out what you're going to ask your customers, which customers you're going to ask the experience of. Do you have a journey mapping exercise that you're going to do before any of this happens so you can identify a moment of truth to focus on where you're going to measure? Then you start getting feedback from customers and you're trying to engage the whole organization to log in and take a look at the results and then act on the feedback on a regular basis. And then, then you're getting a bunch of data in and you're trying to figure out, okay, what can I do systemically to improve the customer experience across the organization? And that takes a lot of effort. And sometimes what gets lost is all the successes that you hear about, and there will be successes, no matter what kind of company you have, no matter even if your NPS score isn't really high, you're going to get some wins out of the program. Wins could be positive comments from customers. Wins could be improvement in a key outcome like NPS or Net Promoter Score or Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction, customer effort. Or it could be simply that you've started closing loops on customer experiences that weren't what they expected them to be. So there's all this success. And I think what happens is there's so much energy spent on the beginning and the middle and even kind of what does this all mean? There isn't as much in terms of celebrating progress. And right, Audrey, like you run these programs, sometimes it's hard to stop and say, okay, what have we done well, and how are we going to communicate those successes out to our key stakeholders?
100%. So I think there's often a lot of focus placed on negative experiences or negative feedback that you collect, and rightfully so, right? You want to do service recovery. You want to make sure that you're talking to people who had problems and solving them and making it so that they feel comfortable moving forward, remaining one of your customers. So I understand why all the focus is often on negative things, but it's so important to remember that you're getting this positive feedback. And these are really wins for you and your organization, for your employees, and you should celebrate them. And that's what we really want to talk about today, ways to celebrate them, and making it part of your regular program to include celebrations and positive stories, just as much as you would focus on the negative things.
Just following up, and this wasn't part of our outline. I'm going to go a little off script here, everybody. But when you think about it, and these people won a Nobel Prize on this theory. There's something called prospect theory by Kahneman and Tversky. They're 2 professors, and they basically showed that people value or feel equivalent losses more than equivalent gains. So the easy example is, if you lose $50 falls out of your wallet and you lose it, you're feeling worse than if you walked by and found $50. But anyway, it's the same with customer experience, right? like Audrey said, when you get alerts that are of a negative experience, you internalize them and like, we got to do something about these. This is where our effort has to be. Yet if you see a net promoter score increasing or a customer effort score decreasing, meaning it's easier to do business with you, you might say, well, that's what it was supposed to do, but you don't think about the same, okay, how do we communicate that to the world? How do we celebrate that success? How do we let all of our stakeholders know that we are making progress? And most importantly, how does the team know, if you're part of a small customer experience team, it's really important to look at these gains you're getting rather than just focusing on kind of gaps that you may not be filling. So that kind of sets it up for today.
Yeah, and so I think that's a great setup for us to jump into kind of some of the advice that we have and the slides that we have, and we do want to frame these three lessons through exactly as you were saying, Sean, some of those audiences there. So why don't I've got something for us to share here today, and I'll go ahead and pull this up.
PeopleMetrics Live always has usually has some sort of sharing piece that you can then get. And this is an example of it.
Yeah. So for exactly these three lessons that we're trying to describe, we'll put it through the lens of these three stakeholders you should keep in mind. And Sean, if you just want to walk us through these three.
Yeah, let's do it. Right, so you have three constituencies that we were thinking of that you need to think about with regard to your successes within customer experience. It's individual employees who are interacting with customers every day. So you have folks who are on the front line, talking to customers, serving customers every single day. You know, their successes need to be celebrated. And we have some specific ideas on that in a moment, but those are a key audience. These are individuals within your organization. And then it's your organization as a whole. You know, beyond the front lines, how are you sharing the successes that you're having within customer experience with your entire organization? And finally, of course, it's your customers. You know, closing the loop on customers and letting them know how much you appreciate their feedback, and then sharing overall successes and progress you're making, it's appreciated with them too. So it's those three big buckets that we're going to concentrate on today.
Yeah, and one quick note I'd say before we jump to the next slide is that something that CX administrators and experts know is that buy-in is fundamental to the success of any CX program. That's often talked about in the case of leadership buy-in, but it's the case across these audiences. The employees who are interacting with customers need to have buy-in with the program. The leadership needs to have buy-in with the program, and your customers need to understand, why am I participating and giving you, the sense of the experience in the first place. So if you don't get that buy-in, you don't share these stories, you're putting your whole program at risk in a big way. With that, let's jump on and start with individual employees. Right. So
Audrey, we love this, right? We love getting alerts. Alerts mean some email is triggered after a certain experience, right? So we always think about them as problems, like somebody had a problem, let's alert the company to that problem. But there's another type of alert, right? That's really important to think about.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think recognizing individual employees is so important, especially your frontline employees who are out dealing with things on the fly, have to think on their feet, and sharing their success is one of the ways to make them feel really valued within your organization. So we always recommend putting what we call a recognized question into a transactional survey, which is really asking your customers, did anybody go above and beyond in your interaction to help you with your problem or to get you what you needed? And if that respondent says, yes, this person went above and beyond, we ask you to explain who was it and what did they do. So we're really collecting individual word of mouth stories about positive things that your employees did. And we can't recommend highly enough to share these, share them with the individual that was recognized, so that they know that their actions really had an impact. We talk a lot about moments of truth on our PeopleMetrics Live sessions, and those are really interactions with your customers that make them have an emotional reaction. And, we've talked about, we're always talking about negative things and how to resolve problems, but these are moments of truth too. When somebody went above and beyond to help one of your customers with something, that will elicit an emotional response, and that's something that they're going to remember for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something you can use kind of across industries. I've worked with restaurant clients where they're sharing this in daily stand-ups, or at call centers where you're printing out kind of this positive survey response and you're putting it in someone's cubicle. So once you get that positive feedback directed toward an individual, that's a great way to connect them and share that success with them individually. Okay, the next thing I have here.
Right. So just building on this, right, Audrey, and we've done this many times for our clients. It's, you know, make it something where it's a formal program where, you know, if you're doing this for a year or more, you're going to start accumulating these recognition alerts that tie to individual employees. And you're going to start seeing employees who gather the most recognition alerts. So you can use that in a variety of ways, and it's not expensive, right? You can create a program. You know, we've done brand ambassador programs, we've named them, where the people who've gotten the most recognition alerts get a formal kind of award at a meeting at the organization, and they're recognized for that accomplishment. And you can also tie into, you know, monetary and non-monetary bonus type structure, right? So encouraging great delivery of experiences by your people, and then you know that they're great by the customer recognizing those individuals, and it makes it extremely powerful, and it's how you turn your culture into a customer-centric culture, in my view.
Yeah, and this doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be complicated. You can get creative with it, but it should just be something that's out there for your employees to see, that you know that they're being recognized, and you're sharing that back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just one thing I'd add to this, of course, is you're saying it doesn't need to be expensive. You know, it certainly can be. You can have some variety of prizes, but it doesn't even necessarily need to be anything at all. You know, something within our company that we did for some time was the thank you rock, where you were acknowledged by someone else, where you were passing around this award, where it's not the financial benefit, it is the sense of pride that you get. So some sort of award where you're being recognized on a regular basis, whether that's financial or not, you want to make it clear and make it tangible. On to our last one here.
Yeah, and I love this one. This is make sure that you're doing it regularly. This shouldn't be like a once a year thing. And I was going to talk about sort of how we practice what we preach here at PeopleMetrics too, Kirk, that we have regular stand-ups here. We have company meetings, and anytime a client is recognizing one of our employees, we're making sure to share that out with a larger group, so that everybody knows that one of our employees has gone above and beyond. So make sure you're sharing your customer feedback on a regular schedule, especially those positive things. It could be at your stand-up meetings, or it could be when you're wrapping up the week, or it could be at a town hall, or, you know, whatever kind of regular meeting you have where you're sharing internal company information is a great time to make sure that you're recognizing employees who have been recognized by your customers.
I have two thoughts before we move on to the ever important organizational level. One is last time we did PeopleMetrics Live, we talked about the power of video, using video in surveys to really bring out the voice of the customer. You could certainly have a pilot going on or test having a video and asking the customer to talk about an employee who they interacted with that had a great experience. And then you could have a highlight reel of those videos shared within an organizational, either to them, or I'm jumping ahead to the entire organization. And that would make, and we could make something that would be very, very powerful. So that's one thought. Second thought is, and one of our clients did this, it doesn't have to be just frontline employees, because while frontline employees are the ones who are going to be recognized specifically by customers because they know maybe their name or where they interacted with them, there's a whole litany of other people that make that frontline person successful. So we had a client create a system where they enabled the frontline people to recognize the people who helped them deliver a great experience to their customer. And it was like a little recognition to back office people, if you will, rather than just front stage people. And you can use that also to recognize those folks on the successes they've delivered, helped deliver through that frontline person. So just a couple of thoughts before we end this one.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'll add my one last point, of course, that when it comes to this individual employee piece, what we're speaking to is really the tie to customer and employee engagement, and how interconnected those are. And you want to make sure that those customer stories are shared with employees who can feel the value and understand the importance of what they do, and you're building on your customer and employee experience from there. And with that, I think we're ready to move on to your organization. Okay, let's kick it off with our first one.
Look, if you're in customer experience, you're not just in customer experience, you're in marketing. Because you have to market your successes to the whole organization. It's the way of getting buy-in. It's the way of keeping customer experience front and center across the whole company. And there's no better way to do that after you've secured kind of the buy-in, the customer experience is important, you've started something, is showing progress and marketing that progress within your organization. And we've worked, right, Audrey, with lots of clients who we've helped improve, say, scores like Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction. But not all of them have marketed it, I don't think, as well as maybe they could have, and maybe we should be better at helping them do that. But it's something that is really, really important, and sharing those successes throughout the organization is absolutely critical.
Completely agree. Yeah. And I think maybe we weren't thinking about it as much a number of years ago, but now it's become so important for buy-in to the program as a whole to say, this is what we've learned and this is what we've done about it. And that's not even specific to these success stories, although it makes a ton of sense to share your success stories, because I think even that helps buy-in for your program. This is what we learned. This is what people are saying about how good a job we've done after we made these changes. So it's really just important to communicate about what's going on with your program in general, but certainly about success stories, so people, A, know that you have them, B, so that you can replicate them. I mean, they're good coaching opportunities when you hear about something that caused the client to say, yes, this person really went above and beyond for me. Maybe you want to replicate that in a larger part of your organization, and really just to let employees know what's going on with your customers.
Yeah, and one thing I note here, especially if you're in a CX department or role, is to keep in mind not everyone has that same customer experience mindset. So you don't necessarily need to get into the granularities of here's how our timeliness scores has improved, here's how our punctual or friendliness score has improved. You want to share, our problems have gone down by X%, our NPS has gone up by Y%, and tie it to something that really matters, to that folks is tangible, as far as churn has gone down, the operational costs have gone down, we've increased kind of revenue within our customers. I think it's very clear for someone outside your audience to understand. Therefore, you're building buy-in, so they get the sense of here's why this program matters, and want to keep building on to it from there.
And this doesn't have to be high tech. We've had clients put huge graphs of simple improvements in Net Promoter Score or customer effort score in their common areas, right? Like it's not like it has to be very, very high tech. And that's, of course, when people are going into the office. So that's an office thing. But if there's other, you don't have to think of it as something that has to be highly technical. It can be pretty basic. In a virtual environment, it could be sharing that within an all company Zoom meeting, right? And just showing that on the screen as well.
This next one here gets to Sean, which you were mentioning before.
Yeah. Right, so it could be anything from results to videos, like I mentioned before, to quotes, customer quotes, just to bring the customer, the good customer experience to life. So some people are more visual with quantitative numbers, but most people can, when Audrey was talking about emotionally connecting, you emotionally connect to stories, and stories usually are better shown either on a video of a customer explaining or having a customer quote being shared and read potentially to the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is just so much more impactful than saying like our score went up by 3 points, which I do think it's important to share. But having somebody say, your employee at this store on this date really went above and beyond for me by bringing my packages to the car without me asking, or any of these things that people are doing to help your employees are doing to help your customers. It really makes people stop and think, and it's heartwarming, some of these stories. So I think it is so important to share the specifics, and especially if you can do it in a video, it's so much more impactful than just a number.
Yeah, and exactly. I think what you mentioned there, Sean, of course, that ultimately you are telling a story here. So you want all of these to feed together. And this is what we do for our clients all the time. Is we show you, here's how your score improved because we changed this process. And not only are we seeing that in your scores, customers feel that specifically, and they will call out that this process has changed and it's made their lives easier. And you can put all those together in a way that is just a very compelling story for someone who is not regularly a part of your program. All right, and then our last one here.
I think we've been talking about this sort of in a roundabout way, but there's no right way to do this. But it's important to meet employees where they are. So if you have break rooms, it's a great place to put up a video reel or that chart that we talked about with your scores, somewhere in your office if you're back in the office. But if not, like post it on the front page of your intranet or include it in a newsletter, have it mentioned, or send these stories out on a company-wide communication channel, if whatever you use to communicate within your organization. So there's tons of options, and you'll just have to find what's the best fit for your organization.
And this could be something that you're doing something virtually now, and then if and when you transition back to the office, that's something that you can transition there. And I think there'd be no better way to get back into the office to feel like part of something than seeing what customers are saying about the experience of that company when you get back. It's like, look at that. It makes people feel good. This is why we're doing this, right? Like every company exists for their customers, right? If they weren't adding value to customers, they wouldn't exist. And being able to hear how that company is adding value is really a morale booster. And we see this in our employee experience work. I know I'm off on another tangent now, but the reality is that employees who feel like their company delivers a great customer experience tend to be more engaged than those employees who don't, or are part of an organization who they feel they don't. And it's a huge way to create employees who are engaged and committed to the organization, which we know today is exceedingly difficult given what's going on in the world. So it's just another thing to think about.
All right, well, I think we're ready to move on to our final one, onto customers. So let's
like I said, the most important, right? No company exists without customers.
Save the best for last. Here we go. So let's start it off.
So there's a lot you can do with a customer, right? And this has a lot to do also with the strategy of your company and how much do you want to share with the world. But you certainly can publicly release things that are around your customer experience program. So maybe your Net Promoter Score has gone up. Maybe your Net Promoter Score is higher than known benchmarks in your industry. On PeopleMetrics website, our NPS is 88. We did include that on our homepage because we're proud of the service that we provide to our clients. So that's an example of this, right? So, right, Audrey, is there anything else you'd want to say on that one?
I just think it's great to own it. You should be proud of your NPS, and if it's not where you want it to be or whatever outcome metric that you're measuring, I think it's still great to share it and say, we're not quite there yet. We've set a lofty goal, and here's the things we're doing to get there. So even if you're not thrilled with your actual score, I think it's great to share and share with your customers what you're doing to improve their experience.
I mean, when you ask customers for their feedback, we talk about this all the time. That is a part of their journey with you. That is a touch point. You're asking them for their time, and time is extremely valuable. So at the very least, thanking customers for participating in any kind of feedback activity, whether it be a survey or a focus group or whatever you're doing to get feedback from them, is extremely important and something that we always recommend.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's important to remember that their survey is part of the experience, like you said, Sean, and it's always great to thank people. So I'm sure you're thanking them when you're having that interaction with them. This is another opportunity to thank them.
Yeah, and the key thing really for this, especially, is that some folks take surveys and don't necessarily expect that someone's going to read them. Is that there's this almost venting process with it. And so whether it's positive feedback or negative feedback, and you reach out to a customer and thank them or follow up, that can be a pleasant surprise. And so it does encourage feedback in the future. It shows a sense of care. And we said this before, that of course your customer survey and your customer experience program is a part of your customer experience. So make sure that you're not just letting this drop off. And you need to thank customers and show them there's a purpose to this. That's, and on to our last one here.
Right. So it's any improvements you've made, shout it out on top of the mountain, right? Like, it's tell customers what's changed and how things you think have gotten better, and it's a result of their feedback, thanking them. And then, there's lots of channels that you can share changes, successful changes. You can mention it on a survey invitation. You can do press releases. You can put things on your website. You can have things on your booths at conferences once they come back. There's lots of different ways that you can, showcase these positive changes that you've made to the customer. And nobody expects perfection, right? And everybody just appreciates progress. And I think if you continue to have that kind of mindset, then you're constantly improving how the customers will be viewing you, and them knowing that you're focused on their experience is super important.
And unless you're sharing these things in any of the ways we've mentioned, or any way you come up with, your customers are never going to know. You could be working so hard behind the scenes, but if you're not celebrating your successes publicly or sharing failures and what you're going to do about them, customers aren't going to know. So I do think it's so important to supplement what you're doing on the back end and internally, and by sharing it out to the public.
Yeah, precisely. And I think because since so much of customer experience goes to culture, you need to build a culture with your customers that you listen to them and you respond to them. And the only way they're going to be aware of that is when you say that. When you say, not just have we made some changes, but we made some changes in response to customer requests and customer feedback. So that's something that we put within, follow-up survey invites, is calling out what we did as a result of previous surveys, or exactly as Sean and Audrey were saying, press releases, placards in stores or what have you, to note we are listening to you and we want to keep hearing from you so we can keep improving and better meeting your needs.
You could take what we have today, like what would be next steps for the audience? You can take these slides, which we'll give to you, and you can create a little plan on each one of these audiences on what's one action or two actions you're going to take in the fourth quarter to recognize the successes of individuals on your front line. How are you going to share your successes of your CX program with the organization, and how are you going to share it with your customers? And I bet you it would make a huge difference if you just did one action on each one of those for those three groups each quarter. Before you know it, it'll be a regular part of your cadence. And I think the ROI from that is going to be pretty significant.
I think that's great advice. And I think, we want you to know that we're here to help you with that too. If you ever have any questions or want to run ideas by us, we're happy to have those conversations. And yeah, reach out to us.
Absolutely. And we are just at time here, so I think it's a great time to wrap. So Sean and Audrey, definitely thank you for this overview of the three best ways to share these CX success stories. Hope it's been valuable for everyone on the call. And we do again want to mention that this will go up on our YouTube channel, and once we have that, we will also have these diagrams that we put together available as a downloadable. And if any of your colleagues couldn't make it, please feel free to share this with them. And feel free to reach out to us to learn more about CX, including our CEO, Sean McDade's book, Listen or Die, which covers this and many other best practices on how to run a customer feedback program. So happy CX Day to everyone on the call today. Hope you enjoyed the session, and have a great rest of your CX Day.